My official title, at least at this point, is senior audio engineer. And what that encompassed when I first started was just doing a lot of research, man, trying to, anything and everything to improve the engine. LANDR is, as you might imagine, is a constantly improving product. And given that it's based on machine learning, the more data that it gets, the more tracks that it gets, the more it improves. And there's a total team of engineers there supervising it and tweaking it and trying to make sure that the results are the results that they would do personally if they were mastering something. So that was kind of my initial thing, and I still do that, but I've moved more into working with our major label clients. So LANDR has a number of major labels on board that use it, and I spend a lot of time. That's why I'm in LA a lot, is because I'm dealing with them. So my role is transitioning into that, being more of the liaison to the high end professional part of the industry. So machine learning, basically, like super high level, is trying to get computers to act, to do things without being told to necessarily. So in other words, being able to feed a whole bunch of data into a system and then have it make judgments based upon that data. And it's the same thing that's resulted in like Facebook, face recognition and speech recognition, and the self-driving cars are based on this, and even really good, good web search engines are based on machine learning, as they learn your preferences and things like that the more you use them. And LANDR is entirely based upon that, with the addition of having human mastering engineers supervising the whole process to make sure it's going in the right direction, and that it treats genres the way they should be treated differently from others, so on and so forth. So it's not certainly not like a preset or something like that. It's looking at every problem as an independent problem, but it's really, if you think about it, it's based upon the way that humans would solve a problem, right? You look at your experiences and use those as a reference for how you're going to treat what's in front of you. It's the same type of thing. Yes, LANDR is an automated mastering system. So there's a website, and there's also, the thing that I use with it is the desktop app, where you can drag and drop multiple files into it, and within minute, 2 minutes, get back some options for your master, and you can choose loudness at this point, various degrees of loudness, and preview them, render them, and have a master. Now you can even as you bounce stuff from your DAW, it can bounce into a folder and automatically go up to the cloud and come back and be mastered without you even having to drag and drop. And they have just this week, a new DJ set mastering thing. So we've partnered with Serato, so that now, LANDR can master very long, 2, 3, 4 hour long DJ sets, which is cool. So, when LANDR approached me initially, I had not really heard of them. I think I'd seen something on LinkedIn about them or something like that, but I really didn't know what LANDR was, honestly. So I kind of alluded to this earlier, that after they kind of came and chatted with me, I was like, man, this is a really cool idea. I've been talking, like a lot of professors, I'm a professor, I've been talking to my students about, hey, automated mixing, automated mastering is coming. It's an eventuality. Who's going to do it first? How are you going to tweak your career based on that, so on and so forth. And so I started playing around with it, and I thought it was okay. I was like, I love the idea, but I thought, it had a lot of room to grow. And this is a little over a year ago at this point. But if you think about plugins when they first came about, think about the MP3 and how crappy that was, when it first came out. I was like, all right, like any software, this is going to get better. So I kind of kept looking at it, kept going. When they would update a revision and they would do a new revision of the software, I would check it out. And after 6 months, I was like, man, this didn't just get 10% better in 6 months. It got like 50% better in 6 months. So, and since then, now it's exponentially better than what it was when I first encountered it. So for me, that's what's been interesting, is to see how much it's grown. So honestly, initially when I messed with it, I would not personally have probably used it for mastering. It was good because it gave me some feedback on my mixes, and it pointed out some things that maybe I wasn't paying attention to, and I would go back and tweak. But I wouldn't have probably released something with it, just being totally honest. Now I just did. I just put out Adrian's last record is mastered by LANDR. We've done some major albums that have been mastered by LANDR. Just did a new classical project that's mastered by LANDR, and not like mastered by LANDR and I went and tweaked it afterwards. It's legitimately done by LANDR. So, and I'm not going to put, obviously, if LANDR does something I don't like, I'm going to, go make some adjustments, but it's been pretty good. One thing I think I know actually people have used LANDR for a lot, and I guess I hadn't really thought about this when I was looking at it myself initially, even though, I used it for something similar. is that it really is teaching them about what mastering can and can't do. So instead of sending a track off and getting it legitimately mastered by somebody, and you get maybe one revision or something, you can continually feed the same mix, and people do this a lot, like the same mix through LANDR like 5 or 10 times, and get it back and say, oh, okay, well, if I'm referencing against, whatever my favorite song is, well, my vocals weren't loud enough, they weren't present enough, they weren't whatever, because mastering can compensate for some of that, but it's not magic. And I think people who don't have a lot of experience with it think that it is, and it doesn't matter who in the world masters your song, they can only work with what you give them, So helping people refine their mixing technique, I think, is probably one of the biggest, benefits of what LANDR does. Having LANDR be something that can work with, somebody's, classical piece that has, wide dynamic range all the way up to an EDM track that is loud, as loud as it could possibly be already, is definitely the biggest challenge. So that is, and it's one of the things, honestly, when I came on board that we, really, they were already focused on, but really started focusing on, particularly the loudness side of things. So there's some freaking really cool stuff coming out, very shortly with LANDR. So it's about that, man. I keep saying this and it sounds like a sales pitch or something, but it's already cool, but it's about to take a significant leap in the next iterations coming out. So it's pretty exciting. And that's kind of where I came on board. That stuff's just now coming out. So that's why I'm probably so geeked about it, but whatever. But the loudness thing is probably the biggest challenge. I guess the answer to this is twofold. One of which, because sonically it is growing like you would expect any software to grow, that's helped with the acceptance. It legitimately is, better than it was a year ago, right? But that aside, because LANDR could be, let's just be honest, it could be the perfect mastering engine, right? It could be just immaculate, and philosophically people would hate on it, so. It does, the sound quality is supremely important, A, but B is also the idea that, it's robots taking people's jobs or something ridiculous like that. And so that's the interesting part. And actually for me, I've been pleasantly surprised by the people I expected there to be more pushback than there actually is, especially on the professional level and the label level, and colleagues of mine who are majors in the industry. And I've been really surprised that, I approach them and I'm like, oh crap, they're going to, scream at me about this. And they've been like, oh yeah, no, we knew this was coming for a long time. It's, people it's not putting mastering engineers who are really good at what they do are always going to have jobs because people want that. And it's kind of like, it's like the autofocus camera, people screamed, this is just to go to a completely different technology. When that came out, purists were like, what? If you don't focus manually, it's not usable and you're never going to take a good picture. But manual focus still exists and autofocus still exists. And people use both of them depending on what their needs are. And it's the same thing with mastering and what LANDR does, honestly. And of course, it's about budget and a lot of other things too, and about convenience and about the amount of time you have and all that. But yeah. I think this is a pretty obvious, I think this would be the answer that anybody would give, is that right now, LANDR is geared towards mastering singles, right? You can master an album with it, but it's not set up necessarily for that, where, you don't drop a bunch of songs in and it treats them like an album and it puts them into a category with an album and you enter in. Like that would be, if I was a user, that would be what I would be looking forward to coming out at some point. Oh man, I'm super 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 lucky that I get to do all sorts of crazy stuff. So I just spent a couple of weeks in West Hollywood, rented a house with a big studio, and had an artist there, and we all lived in the house and worked on a record. The artist is Jesse Boykins, who's an excellent R&B soul artist, and we just did that. Working on a big Disney movie right now, getting ready to go out to Skywalker Ranch to been working on it for almost 5 years. So we're going out to work with the orchestra and actually record the music for it, which is cool. That's next week. So I'm super geeked out. As anybody would be super geeked about that. A couple more albums by Baloo. There's a really cool record. I alluded to this earlier. It's a classical metal album that I did, which is not something in a world that I typically go into, by Wolf Hoffman, who's the guitarist of Accept. That'll be coming out on Nuclear Blast here. Yeah, I've toured all over the world with that band. Like I built their live sound system and do the programming for all the guitar systems and stuff. And they're really good guys. And albums are extremely cool. And this is a new kind of a thing that I think they're going to try and tour with, which is going to be really cool with an orchestra. So it'll be that. I just, getting to go do cool stuff, working on some apps. So I'm big into the iOS world. So, using iPads and iPhones and integrating them into your traditional studio setup and then building apps that kind of facilitate that. Yeah. So just, and then I'll be speaking at, I speak at a lot of conferences, so NAMM, South by Southwest, all that kind of stuff on guitar technology. So I'm putting some things together for summer NAMM. So if anybody's going to be in Nashville, I'll be hanging out there. So absolutely, man. I would love to do it, Dan.